it needed to break because if it didn't, nobody was ever going to acknowledge it.
You need to clip
They
that.
were going to.
I'm telling you, your segment right now, from a content perspective, when you go back, you need to clip that. It needed to break. That way it could be fixed correctly. You need to clip that. You need to put that
Okay.
on a
Well, it
YouTube
did
short.
need
You need
to.
to go put that on. That's a great take. That is a phenomenal
Yeah.
take.
Well, when you think about it, I mean, Texas hasn't been relevant for 12 years. They haven't done anything. I mean, they played in one conference championship game in 12 years. You've got A&M leaves, Missouri leaves, Colorado leaves. I mean, all this time, and then, like I said, Oklahoma State is a perpetual underachiever. They win a lot of regular season games. They don't win any conference titles. So, yes, they won 6 in a row, and it looked okay, but they were getting blown out in the playoff. If it didn't break, it was never going to get right.
I love that.
That's all there was to it.
I think it's so true. I think it's so true.
Yeah. Anyway, I just feel like welcome back to the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. They should have won the conference title and been in the playoff though. They choked the game, and they always do this too, but they lost the game to Iowa State at home, and then they beat Oklahoma, which, hey man, I'm going to say this forever. That game was thrown. As far as I'm concerned, Lincoln knew that he needed to get out of there or else he may not take the job. Or what are you going to do with your recruiting? Although we find out now that clearly he was already recruiting for USC.
I just love the comments after the game. And at the time, I remember being in a live. And I didn't think much of it, but I did bring it up. And I was talking to Chris. He's like, "Oh, see, there's no worry. He's staying." And I was like, "Yeah, but he didn't say he was staying, Chris." He's like, "What
No,
do you
he
mean?" I
didn't.
said, "He said he wasn't going to LSU." And Chris was like, "No, he's staying." And I was like, I think he is. Because at that time, you're like, okay, it's Lincoln. It's Oklahoma. This doesn't happen to
Right.
Oklahoma.
Right.
Y'all are
Right.
a beacon of consistency. You're the Pittsburgh damn Steelers.
Here's the thing, though. I knew after the Baylor loss that something was wrong.
Yeah,
Because
I
he
knew
didn't
early
show
on.
up for his media availability. He didn't show up for his media availability that Monday, right? He gets back, and there was all kinds of reports about that he had flown down to Baton Rouge, or they saw a private plane. They assumed it was Baton Rouge, and I'm sure he was making it look that way.
I think he used
Whether
LSU
it
as
was Baton
leverage.
Rouge or whether he went to LA, I don't know. Of course, he got the same deal.
Yeah.
No matter what, wherever he was at, he wasn't at freaking practice. Okay. And he wasn't at media availability. He gets back, the Tulsa World, the Oklahoman, all of them, all these reporters, the media guys there, they ask him where he was or if he had been to LSU. And what is his answer? His answer is, guys, I think I've said this before. I'm the head coach at the University of Oklahoma. That's it. I said, and I'm sitting here watching this live going, until you're not. What the hell is that?
Yeah, he was almost like a politician with how he answered. Because if you go back,
that's exactly what he was doing. He didn't say,
didn't lie.
I'm not going to LSU. He said, yeah, I'm the coach at Oklahoma. And I was like, son of a bitch.
I think the strongest.
I knew he was gone that day. I said, that dude is leaving.
I think the strongest thing he ever came out and said was when they specifically were like, "Are you going to LSU?" And he's like, "I'm not going to LSU." Period. and he didn't say anything else, and I was like, in my head, I was
I
just like,
know, and nobody held his fucking feet to the fire then either.
and in fairness, like, even though I said something about it, like I said,
Yeah.
I will stand 10 toes. I never would have put 2 and 2 together that he was leaving. I just thought, "Oh, well,
Mhm.
he's just spiting the media. He's tired of the media being down his throat, and he's just spiting the media." Which, look,
Well,
whether
he
I
does that
yes,
too. He
okay,
definitely does
right?
that too, but
But
but nobody ever held his feet to the fire on anything while he was at Oklahoma.
no, but
I mean, he did no wrong.
that's because it's Oklahoma, and the results were always there. Like, you gotta remember something, bro. You and I both are very spoiled in our college football fandom.
Absolutely.
Very, very spoiled.
Except that Oklahoma hadn't won one since 2000, so
Sure, I hear you, and you're not wrong. The difference
yeah.
is, brother, is how many programs have 10-win seasons once every 5 years if they're lucky, and for y'all,
Absolutely.
it's
No,
just
no, I
like an
get that.
afterthought.
Hey,
It's
Sark would love to have a 10-win season. He still hadn't
I
had one
hope
yet.
they're going towards one, but point proven, right? Like, we look at
Yeah,
Texas, we look at all these teams, and it's just like, they haven't had for 5 years the
right.
consistency Oklahoma has had for 20. And so
Sure.
we're both very, very spoiled in our college football fandom, in terms of stuff like that. So, but
Yeah, no doubt.
I think that's part of the reason why I was just like, no, he's not leaving. It's Oklahoma. Why would you leave Oklahoma unless you're
Yeah,
going to the NFL?
I had a feeling, and I remember saying something about it on Twitter that day, and I got attacked by fellow OU fans. That he's not going anywhere. It's just like Stoops. He got approached all the time every year. He ain't going. He's just like Stoops. And I was like, well, shit. He ain't. All he said.
Stoops is cut from a different
All
cloth.
he said was, "I am the coach at Oklahoma." He didn't say, "I'm staying here forever." They didn't ask him, "Will you be next year?" They didn't even ask him a follow-up question.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean? You don't even ask him a follow-up?
softball.
Okay, you are now. We know you are. Nobody fired you, right? Okay, good. So will you be next year? You know what I mean? It would have been the first thing that I asked.
Yeah, yeah,
First thing. Well, okay. So until when? You know what I mean? Like to me, and then now we find out that he had his coaches recruiting he had his coaches recruiting for USC during the year.
yeah.
During the year. Scummy. Anyway, I'm definitely with you. Yeah, yeah, listen.
Oh yeah, you guys know how much I talk about
No
it at
doubt.
length. The staff Oklahoma has, you've got to be over the moon with it. How could you not?
They have exceeded. Listen, what happened in the season last year? Nobody liked it. Nobody liked seeing them lose freaking 7 times. Uh, you know, but you got to remember that 5 of those losses were by 1 score. 4 of them by 3 points, and they had a trash defense. The defense wasn't good when Lincoln was there, and the best ones on the defense were gone, aside from Billy Bowman and of course, there was a few guys that played okay, but a new system, it was hard on them. It's just
And
look,
if I may, not only a new system,
surprised that they lost only that many, man, to be honest.
yeah, and not only is it a new
5-star
system,
quarterbacks gone.
right? Like, a new system that happens, but it's a polar opposite in approach to systems.
Mhm.
Right. Whenever we really break this down, and I think this is we'll do it quickly. I don't want to take you down, like take your podcast down the weeds on
No,
this,
keep
but
going.
I
No,
do
we're
want.
alright.
This is just fascinating to me because I'm not like I haven't been doing this long enough to call myself a film guy. But because I know I'm not a film guy, I watch so much film trying to learn as much as I can. Like, I'm always
Sure.
asking Denzel questions, or my roommate PJ who played college football, sending them clips like help me break this down. And especially Denzel, man. He was coached by Gary Patterson, and then on in the NFL level, his NFL coach is going to be a Hall of Famer as well. So Denzel has
Oh.
known nothing but Hall of Fame coaching.
Who is this? Denzel.
Denzel Johnson. It's one of my best friends from high school. He played safety for TCU and then went on to play for the Tennessee
Okay,
Titans. Coached by
nice.
Gary Patterson, was recruited to TCU as a quarterback. Went out there. I think they were during a basketball, just kind of messing around playing basketball. And a word on the street is Denzel just hauls off and does a 360 windmill dunk. And Gary Patterson was like, all right, you're not playing on the bench next year. That next year was that 2014 season or 15 season for TCU where they were
Oh,
so
okay.
good.
Okay.
He was the
Yeah,
safety with the
when the
dreadlocks.
Big 12 screwed that all up.
He was the
Oh.
safety with the dreadlocks that
Oh, I remember that
he
guy.
was first team
Yeah.
All Big 12. He was unbelievable.
Mhm.
He was
I remember
he
that guy.
was great, and he is Jason, he's smart. He's a really, really smart guy. So I
So what's he doing now?
anything and
Yeah.
everything, man. Training. He's doing a lot with the youth in Gainesville. Still doing some CFL action. He had a hamstring injury that really hurt, but he's staying active in the CFL, keeping himself ready, and doing a lot of training with the youth around Gainesville right now.
That's
And
good, man. That's awesome.
I think he'd be a great college coach, but he's got a family at this point. That's neither here nor there. But whenever we look at this Oklahoma transition, one thing we have to acknowledge is when we look at the Alex Grinch scheme, look, the nickname is Speed D. It's predicated on we're going to do things simple, we're going to have one read, and everything is going to be flow. We're going to create layers and linear paths within our defense. That way, everything is very quick, very snappy. If one person misses their, line, there's someone else to come in there and try and take advantage of that. A lot of stunts up front, a lot of movement up front, and it's all just about more freeing and gadget stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You then transition from that to a very cerebral defense.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
difference of reacting to training and then letting your mind react as opposed to your body reacting.
That's right. That's right. You have assignments
Oh,
you have to
good
be
God.
gap assigned. It's gotta be listen, and we saw it all last year. The Baylor game, they lost it because they had 2 guys
Oh,
in the
God.
same gap. You could see it right in the film.
Well,
You know, you
Kansas State had a
all
touchdown where you had
same
3
thing.
linebackers to one side of the center, and I'm sitting
That's
there
right.
like, "Guys, there's nobody to the strong side of the center. Someone's gotta go over
Right.
there," and Deuce Vaughn just cuts right in there for the touchdown, and it not only did Lincoln take some of the best players, the philosophy that these players were having to transition to, I don't think that
Sure.
that gets talked about enough because I think that
No,
that
James was
was
saying it he was perfect right on right here.
yes.
Everybody forgets it. It takes that first year. They're gonna struggle. They struggled at Clemson, they did. They struggled well, they not his first year here because they won or no, it was the second year. They struggled the first year though. I mean, they had a rough time. And they had some good recruits. They had good recruits him and Stoops showed up. I mean, they went undefeated the next year and won the national championship. So, I mean, yes, he's right here. Season 2 they're going to be better and yes, they're going to be better in season 3 because we're talking about Adebawari and all these guys that are going to we're wondering how well they're going to be this year, how well they're going to play this year, how much time they're going to get. They're going to get time, but it's going to be a lot better by year 3 by the time they get to the SEC, and that's when you want it to be. Obviously, this is good. It's working itself out well. Yeah, I'd say this: if Lincoln was going to do us that favor, he did it at the right time. You know, because had he waited another year, then what? You know what I mean? Um, but bottom line is that I agree. And here's the other thing about the speed: they didn't that freaking strength and conditioning program when after that first year when they should have won the national championship the first year they should have beaten the brakes off of Georgia in that Rose Bowl. I was there. They had them. They let their foot off the gas and it got out of hand. But in truth be told, that was a coaching. There was multiple coaching mistakes that happened there. But in the end, when you think about it, after that they weren't able to do it. And why? Because Speed D is meant for your Texas Techs of the world or your ECUs of the world or wherever else that isn't a blue blood that can't go get those monsters.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see the Speed D in USC. Now, this is gonna be
We
kind.
saw it.
Yeah, I know, but look, I got to be as objective as possible. They inherited crap on the defensive side of the ball. You
I'm
know what I
aware.
mean?
I'm
Like
aware.
it is
Yeah.
what it is. But in fairness to you, we've seen enough of a sample size. I
I've
hope
watched him.
they give. I ping pong back and forth about this because after the season, I said, "Look, if you're Lincoln Riley, I understand you might have a loyalty to Alex Grinch. You need to go out there and you need to get somebody. You need to get somebody.
Oh,
Your defense
he
is your defense is unbearable. Your offense is unbelievable. You got to get somebody." But
yeah.
part of me hopes they keep him because I almost want to use it as a case study on his defensive philosophy. Right? I want him to be somewhere for an extended period of time. That way I have a large sample size of what he does. Oklahoma, I think, is a great indication of that. And I just don't know if the Big 12 is apt for the speed D like the Pac 12. Maybe. I think you could get away with it in the Pac 12.
Well, but okay, but the Pac-12 is, for all intents and purposes, it's over with.
Oh, I agree with you there. I no disagreements from here. I
So
mean, they're looking at the
I mean,
CW
and
network.
here's the thing, they're going to the Big 10
Well, no
next year
doubt. That's
too.
why that's why they have got to address the defense. They've made some defensive analyst
Caleb
hires.
makes up for a ton, you're
Yeah,
right.
Caleb makes
Yep.
up for a ton, Hank.
Yeah,
No
man,
doubt
no doubt.
about that. The guy is unbelievable. But it's one of those things where,
Oklahoma, you were talking about it on your show that there were some bad wins
yes.
in Lincoln's last year, or,
So
they were ugly wins. We've talked about it in here a ton. You don't These guys ain't gonna freak out. We've talked about it over and over and over again. There were 6 games throughout the year that they barely won, and against lesser, inferior opponents. Obviously, the Texas game, I mean, Caleb brought them back from 28-3.
I can say this right here because I know. I think Kim, Matt, Hank, Jimmy, and Sean. I think
Mhm.
every single one of you were around the channel at the time. And this was when I'd first really started. My first year doing YouTube was Lincoln Riley's year last year with the Sooners was when I kicked this off. Um, and I got a little heat from OU fans, and it's because when I was
Yeah.
watching these games, I was like, "Hey, y'all are winning." And Matt, Jimmy, y'all will remember this. Kim, Sean, y'all, Hank, y'all will remember this. I stated something's just not clicking. You're winning. You're winning, and
And
that's what's most
especially
important.
as loaded as they were on offense, they should have been blowing people out.
That was it, right? Like it wasn't the fact that you weren't winning. Winning is the end all be all in college football, but we also have to acknowledge that winning is the end all be all. Not all wins are created equal. Not all losses are
That's
created equal.
correct.
Which is a
That's
worse
correct.
loss, right? Which is a loss you would rather not have? Would you rather have lost to Georgia if you're Ohio State? Would you take that loss in the playoff game or being Miami getting blown out by Middle Tennessee State
Tennessee's
University?
yeah, of course it's yeah, you take
Yeah,
that.
there's
You
no
take that.
and
Yeah.
I remember watching thinking it doesn't make sense to me. Something like I remember banging my head against a wall, begging Denzel like put the puzzle together for me, man. Please put it together for
Mhm.
me because the talent is there. Lincoln is a brilliant coach. This isn't adding up. Well, personally, this is just my opinion. I have no. I think he was checked out. I think he was checked out fairly early on in the year, and it looked like Oklahoma was coasting, as opposed to having the foot on the gas and taking advantage. It looked
Well,
like
and
coasting.
the discipline was definitely not on the same level ever at any time with Lincoln as it had been with Stoops, as it is now with BV too. That's the other, but yes, there was a and I mean that's obviously not undisciplined way to be,
And Hank,
and it happened a lot. Every year they got beat by somebody that they shouldn't lose to even before
well,
that.
here's an interesting thing. Hank, you're right. Everybody thought it was Spencer, and in fairness, including
They
me.
did. They did.
But my point was always this. Yes, I think it does go back to Spencer. You have the quarterback whisperer.
Mhm.
Spencer is not devout of talent, and you have the quarterback whisperer
Oh no, yeah.
himself,
Hey,
Lincoln.
listen,
Why is it
Spencer.
not working?
No, that's exactly right. And I mean, and I've got my thoughts about Spencer Rattler, but because I don't think that he's great. I don't. I think that he's a head case. I think he's got a big arm. I think he's got an NFL arm. I
His
think that the
arm is
problem with
blessed.
unbelievably so,
Blessed.
but he's a jerk. He's not a great leader. And when he has a problem, he's one of those guys that's going to blame it on somebody else. If you watched any of the stuff from Netflix, the QB1 stuff
Yeah,
that he
I
was in,
remember
he was
watching
an
that.
asshole. and he's still doing that stuff. He's still being a jerk about, and still talking bad about Oklahoma. And Lincoln's gone, buddy. You don't have to be, you can be mad, but you should be mad at Lincoln, not the rest, not OU. Now, there was those games that they were calling for him to come out of the game, and I get that. But he said it. I'm still salty. But the thing is yes, if as great as Lincoln is with quarterbacks, why couldn't he get that to work?
That was always I was like, you have Marvin Mims on the outside. You have 2 running backs who I just think are
Mario Williams is a
spectacular.
stud.
Mario
Yeah.
Williams is
Hey.
great. Theo Weiss, well, he was hurt, so fair point there. But
Mhm.
you had Brooks, you had Eric Gray, and this was the thing. This is when I knew something was amiss, Jason. Eric Gray stylistically should have fit into that offense like a glove. He should
Yep.
have been such a weapon. How many two back splits did we see from Oklahoma that entire year? Any?
Nope.
And all of a sudden, everybody's like questioning Eric Gray. Well, the reason is because I don't, that's when I knew something. i- This isn't Lincoln's. Like, this isn't the same Oklahoma we've seen, but it's a more talented Oklahoma. That's why
Yeah.
I just think when you look at the coaches y'all hired now, when you look at the future that's in front of you, you have no
Yeah.
choice but to be excited. Very excited.
Exactly. And that's where listen, the folks that are, I was on that live stream with Jay the other day, and there was some guy in there that was still just teeing off on Dylan Gabriel and stuff, and where I was like, dude, what is wrong with you? And I was like, it had nothing to do with Dylan Gabriel this past year. And the bottom line is let it go. Because even no matter what happened, you needed it to break. My friend Corey said that one time.
Mm,
It needed to break,
I think that's a
like
beautiful
completely
point.
break. It needed to break and be broken. That you can't glue the shit back together or duct tape it together anymore. It needed to be broken because until it got broken, it was and Venable said we got to tear it down to the studs.
Ooh,
Nobody wanted to hear that, but until it got broken, it was never gonna get fixed correctly.
I love that. I love that
You
point
know,
because I think it's so true. Because I think Oklahoma, look, part of being spoiled is complacency can set in. And I think complacency
they
for a
won six
team,
in a row. They won 6 conference championships in a row and
yeah,
went to 4 playoffs. There's nothing wrong in Oklahoma.
complacency looks
Bullshit. There
different
was
for different
plenty of
teams.
wrong.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like complacency for Oklahoma is most
absolutely,
teams'
man.
dreams, but it's just like
Absolutely.
last year I could say complacent was Alabama. They walked
Hmm.
into that year thinking that because they had that talent, they were going to run
Oh
ship through
yeah.
everybody. They were undisciplined,
Well,
they were unsure of themselves, and it showed every single Saturday except specific quarters of the season. I can't say one
right,
game
right.
where I thought Alabama played 4 complete quarters of football.
Oh
They were
no. And I
complacent.
mean, and they still their losses were by 1 point still. I mean, that just goes to show you. But like it's easy to just say, well, they just,
Yeah, it's
it
only
just weren't
2
their year.
losses. It's easy to
But
have that
before the
mentality. Yeah.
season, I remember before the season, what's his name? The old quarterback that's got his own podcast now,
McElroy.
McElroy. Yeah, he was talking about that. He thought it was the maybe one of the best receiving rooms he had ever seen at Alabama.
I didn't go that
That,
far. I liked the
but
receiving
that
room, but it
was
was
I'm just
unproven.
saying what
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
said.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was what he said. But they were talking about it like there was no way in hell that they didn't win the national championship.
Oh, I would have bet. And look, we've done a bit of content together. At this point, I think
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
a fair grasp of how I approach things. I don't like
No, I get
giving
it.
results, like trying to predict results this far out, right? Because I'm like, I
Yeah, yeah,
haven't
I
even
get it.
gotten to see your spring game. I don't know how you're back. There's too many
Me neither.
variables, and I want to give you an opinion to where at least, even if I'm wrong, there's a conversation we can have from why I was wrong, right? Like, oh, I thought this, it went this way, but
Sure.
there's logic there. That's the
Right.
content I want to give people is logical. Um, I was saying last year, hey, Bama could easily win the national championship, and at worst, they need to be in the playoffs. I was dead wrong, dead wrong. They did not deserve to be in the playoffs last year. I cannot be a proponent of the 4 playoff system
Well,
and say Bama deserved to be there. You got to remember, I'm a
yeah, I
proponent of the
mean,
14 playoffs. So I
I get it. I get what you're saying there too. And I to honestly, I feel like Yeah, I think that they screwed Tennessee is who they screwed because they could have, no, they ended up with 2 losses also. So yeah, maybe not, but I knew Ohio State, the one game that was perfect for them to be against Georgia there. If it's anywhere else, it's not in the dome on the carpet, they get blasted. But because they had the quarterback that they had in that receiving room that they continue to add to, they just got another one.
Yeah,
They
Brian
just got
Hartline is
another
unfair.
unbelievable.
It's
Yeah, and
unfair.
look, but what are they going to do defensively? We'll find out. I mean, they still haven't won anything since the first one, since the first playoff. And so to me, I'm still not a big. I think that the Big Ten is kind of crap right now, and I'm just not big on it. And I'm not big on Ryan Day so much. I think that he's a good offensive coach, just like Lincoln is. I think that he doesn't service the whole team. But getting back to the whole thing about what we were talking about, absolutely, there are times that complacency, and it is again, why did it look like it did? And it needed to break because if it didn't, nobody was ever going to acknowledge it.
You need to clip
They
that.
were going to.
I'm telling you, your segment right now, from a content perspective, when you go back, you need to clip that. It needed to break. That way it could be fixed correctly. You need to clip that. You need to put that
Okay,
on a
well, it
YouTube
did
short.
need
You need
to,
to go
and
put that on. That's a great take. That is a phenomenal
yeah.
take.
Well, when you think about it, I mean, Texas hasn't been relevant for 12 years. They haven't done anything. I mean, they played in one conference championship game in 12 years. You've got A&M leaves, Missouri leaves, Colorado leaves. I mean, all this time, and then like I said, Oklahoma State is a perpetual underachiever. They win a lot of regular season games. They don't win any conference titles. So yes, they won 6 in a row, and it looked okay, but they were getting blown out in the playoff. If it didn't break, it was never going to get right.
I love that.
That's all there was to it.
I think it's so true. I think it's so true.
Yeah. Anyway, I just feel like Jimmy.
That had me laughing. Yeah, I saw that. That was good.
Oh, I love that.
No, I'm
Yeah.
on a serious note though. You do need to clip that. I'd
Got
make a
it.
YouTube
Done.
short out of that. I'd make a Twitter post out of that. That is a really, really good take. And I'm sitting here as you're saying that, and I'm like, I haven't heard anybody talk about that. But you could do a full video on that. That's a great
Yeah.
segment.
I actually did earlier before I had an audience. I did do
I'd do it
that.
again. I'd do it
Yeah,
again
I
and
will.
talk about
I will.
how it broke completely
Yeah.
during
And
the
it
course of
did.
the
It
year.
had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had to. Hey, you guys all know the drill, right? Say it with me. Smash that red subscriber button. Like our videos. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Hey, we even have amazing pod merchandise right here in our store. Hey, while you're here, don't forget to check out all these other amazing channels and subscribe to them too.